I'm Nathanael Garrett Novosel, author of The Meaning of Life. We're here to do an unboxing video, as well as do a quick introduction to the text. Let's go ahead and start with the hardback copy. The hardback right here. If you're viewing this video after the purchase of this book, thank you so much. You can see it's actually pretty well structured. I did the whole design myself. I even set up the cover design myself as well. I had help from Fiverr. But basically, why I decided to write this book is I have been reading texts for 20 years, philosophy texts, psychology texts, religious texts. And I've always been fascinated by human behavior, the human mind, and I was really trying to master and truly try to understand basically the self, right? So you can live a successful life. Now, what was interesting over that time is that I started to notice patterns in what the recommendations were. So while everyone says that they disagree about, how the life began and where we came from, why we're here, what we're trying to achieve, you have Christianity, for example, and believing in God and having faith and all of these particular components of what morals were and how you were supposed to live and glorify God, for example. These common patterns were around concepts that were belying every recommendation. So in religious texts, there were a few recommendations that were consistent. So first of all, there was the set of ethics, right? So here are the ways in which you should behave to be a good person and live life successfully. So that was one, right? You have another piece, which is, what are you supposed to do as a human being, right? And growth is a common theme across all of them, right? So you're supposed to grow as a person, grow spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, physically, and so forth. There's also this idea of trying to attain outcomes, right? So any self-help book you've ever read, like, success is the goal, right? And you're trying to work toward that goal by, self-improvement, right? Or through some sort of action. Now, the common themes that you see there with regards to achieving outcomes, right, is you have a current state, a desired future state, some sort of goal, and then you have to work to attain it. And then there's a whole, the self-help tests, for example, differ on what that path is to your goal, right? Because there are different goals, right? Your goal might be money, it might be success, it might be career, it might be, getting a spouse, whatever the goal might be. There is some sort of goal and then some sort of method that they're recommending to attain it. Now, underneath all of those recommendations are a few other core concepts. So, as we mentioned, everyone references in some way, shape, or form growth. Everyone's talking about ethics, right? The right way to live, right? The good life, the one that's a common term used to describe what folks are trying to figure out. But then there's also a lot of talk about emotions. There's a lot of talk about what you want in life, what you're trying to achieve. A lot of talk about beliefs, right? So in religion, it's all about belief despite evidence. In science, it's all about belief only with evidence, right? So beliefs you're trying to get rid of preconceived notions and so forth. So you have all these concepts that people are talking about, and then you have some of those recommendations which are really specific to things that you should do in your life, right? So like help others or serve others, contribute to the good of society, be a good person, kind of thing. And if you notice these common themes that are occurring, you could really boil them down to 8, which are the 8 that you see in the book. And let me show you here. I have the table of contents here. You can see right there is that the 8 are the 8 that I talk about in the book. So the 8 you see here are growth, experience, desire, belief, emotions, ethics, support, and choice. Now, why are those the 8? Well, as I mentioned, if you look through all those texts, you'll see that those are the common themes that cut across all recommendations for how to live well and how to find meaning and purpose in your existence. So growth is the common theme because no matter what type of growth you're talking about, every single self-help book, every single philosophy book, every single religious book, they all talk about being a better person over time, right? Being better tomorrow than you were today, or better today than you were yesterday. It's all about moving forward. It's all about progressing. That's what all recommendations for how to live are all about. And at the core of that is growth. And when you think about how do you define meaning in life, right? So there are three definitions to meaning, right? There's the meaning could be the definition of life, like what is life. There can be the purpose of life, right? And then there is the significance of life, right? Meaning, what does it mean? What is the significance of life in the grand scheme? And we're just a little thing on a tiny blue dot in the universe kind of significance. And when you look at that, growth is the answer to all three of those. So growth is one of the defining characteristics of life, right? So self-replicating organisms, right? That's one I give. You can go to all life on Earth, for example, has, you talk about cells and cellular structures and things like that. Talk a lot about that in the book about evolutionary biology and how that all came to evolve. But no matter how life originated, whether it was a Big Bang or, the universe originated, Big Bang or God or whatever, there is a universe. And then no matter how life originated, so whether that was a primordial soup or a lightning or whatever the recommendations are for what possibly what the guesses are for what caused the origin of life. From a philosophical standpoint, it doesn't matter because the end result was self-replicating organisms that over a long period of time became more and more complex to what you see today, human beings and animals and so forth. But they all started from that same, microscopic self-replicating organism. So growth, that self-replication, that becoming more of yourself over time, is the essence of life. So that's the definition. Its purpose. Well, the purpose of life is also to grow, right? I mean, why else would you do it? It's like, well, you're born, you're a small little baby, and then you grow up, and then you get older, and then you do what you're going to do in life, and then eventually you grow old and die. What was the point of that? Right? So, well, the point is to get better, right? It's like Jerry Seinfeld has a great bit about why do you go to the gym to exercise so you can get better at exercising next time, right? And it's a great bit. Imagine getting on the treadmill every day. It's like, well, you can just get on the treadmill every day and just keep doing, 3 miles for 30 minutes or whatever, and just do that forever and maintain your fitness, or you try to get better. And those are both options for anything you do in life, right? You can either let it deteriorate, entropy, if you will. There is growth, which is becoming better at it, or, better skill, learn more, become stronger, fitter, or you can maintain it, right? Keep it steady while you're developing something else. And we talk a lot about in the book about how there are trade-offs, how if you grow in one area, you might have to sacrifice growing in another because you only have so much time in the day. So that's one of the big difficulties in life and why it's so hard for folks to find their purpose, because maybe they want to do one thing, but maybe they're preoccupied with doing something else first. Maybe they have commitments already that they either fell into or thought that was the right thing to do at the time, like maybe having a child or getting married or whatever the thing is that puts you to a lifetime commitment that now you have to juggle with whatever it is you might find meaningful and really valuable in the moment. And so, like developing a skill or advancing your career, or maybe having a good social network, or maybe it's about social status or something like that. Those are all things that life could be about for you, but you have to make those trade-offs and decide what's prioritize and decide what's important to you. So that's the purpose of life, right? Is to get better every day in whatever way is meaningful to you. That's where the subjectivity comes in, and that's fine. I list in the book a whole list of different growth areas that you can identify which ones resonate most with you. I'm not here to tell you which one's better than the other. For me, it was intellectual growth. It was, physical, try to stay in shape, so I try to grow that way. There are a lot of different specific growth areas I have, but that doesn't mean that they have to be yours. I go to the gym a few days a week, try to stay in shape. If you never want to see the inside of a gym your entire life, I'm not going to judge you for it. Everyone grows in their way. So your growth might be social growth. I mean, that's definitely not my strong suit. I'm a lot easier for me to talk into this camera than it is for me to talk to another human being or a large group of human beings. But you know, everyone's got their own strengths, and they leverage that to grow in the best way possible. So let's talk about the last piece, right? So you've got the definition, the purpose, and then the significance, and that's a big one, because scientists, even atheists, will talk about how they have this grand sense of scale of the universe and how they feel insignificant in relation to that scale, right? And that's where they feel the grand weight of reality, right? So that they're usually saying that as an argument to counter religious commentary about how God gives you that sense of wonder and awe and that sense of insignificance in the grand scheme of things. And scientists will retort, well, I see that in the universe. And I'm not here to say one way or another what's what. All I can tell you is that in terms of significance, what gives you significance if you're just a tiny, ant on a tiny blue ball in the grand scope of the universe, or what are you compared to God, or whatever your belief system is fine with me. My point to you is that the only thing, well, not the only thing, but the most important thing that gives you significance in this world is to grow, to be more than you were before, to create something that never existed before, to do something that had an impact in said grand universe, and therefore have that impact, and hopefully leave that to your next generation or whatever the case may be. That is literally what gives you significance. If you think about the most famous, most successful people of all time, you can start talking like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, or you can talk about Warren Buffett, or you can talk about Marie Curie, or anyone who did something of any significance. They all have the same elements, right? So they identify something that they wanted to achieve. That's desire, right? So you really, really want to achieve that. Bill Gates, it was to change the world through technology. Same with Steve Jobs. If you're like a Marie Curie, it's about identifying all these new elements and working with through science to identify new ways to use these elements for whatever purpose it might be. It could be medical purposes, or it could be for just for the sake of knowing. Sometimes that intellectual growth in and of itself is an end. Warren Buffett, it could be monetary growth. Now, just remember, if you have any bias against making money, like you think it's evil or something, just be clear that in a capitalist society, just want to be clear, you're talking about someone willfully giving money to someone else in order to help them grow their business and succeed. You can argue that people might have malicious intent. We're just going to talk about that. That's what we're covering, is that kind of growth is good for everyone, right? Because the person who invests the money gets a return, so they benefit. The person who receives the money has capital in order to make an investment in their business to grow it. Their employees are all working for compensation in order to support their families and help their families grow. So everybody collectively in a everyone collectively in a free will society, in a free society, everybody is focused collectively on growing, and it's very important that you grow yourself, you help other people grow, they help you grow, you all grow together, and you try not to hurt people. That's the core essence of our reality. And I think everyone can agree on that. I don't think that there's any disagreement that, hey, I grow, you grow, we grow. Let's do it. That's why these are such universal principles, and that's why these are core, universally applicable principles that anyone can follow, ones that people can learn and master and actually succeed in their life and master meaning in their life. So let's go through these quickly. And here, just so you can see, I'm going to open up the other one here. So we also have the softback copy. It's actually interesting to note that the hardback and softback are a little bit different in color, which is kind of cool. Trying to think which one I like better. I kind of like that purple hue on the hardback there, but not sure if you have a preference. It's up to you. You can buy whichever one you want. Talking a little bit more about significance and growth. So that's what you can do, right? You can build a great business, or you can be a better person. You can be more spiritual and be in touch with God. Um, you can grow your social network and have a lot of friends. You can take martial arts classes and be a master of your own body and physical prowess. There are a lot of different ways to grow, and we talked about all of them in the first chapter, the growth chapter of the book. So that is what gives you significance, is to be able to contribute to that, right? To your own growth, to societal growth, to other people's well-being. And so that's why growth satisfies all three definitions. Now, this is where the pushback I expect to come from a lot of people, because they'll look and say, hey, Nate, so you just said growth is meaning life, right? It's the definition, it's the purpose, it's the significance, right? But I'm looking for greater purpose. And that could be the case. You can say, hey, look, I'm looking for greater purpose. And my response to that is, what do you mean by greater purpose, right? So what people usually mean by greater purpose is they mean either purpose beyond themselves, in which case you want to have societal impact, which means you want to help the world grow, and that's good. Find some business to start or some sort of scientific discovery or whatever that's going to help more than you, and you'll have that greater impact and that greater significance and that greater meaning. Other people might think some sort of higher level meaning, some sort of higher consciousness type meaning of spirituality of some sort, or maybe looking to God for some sort of signal that this is their purpose in life. Now, for that, I say, if you're looking for some sort of greater meaning or higher calling from someone, you can look around, you can do research, you can meditate, you can pray, you can do whatever it is that works for you to find out what that higher calling is for you. And when you find it, then go do it. But I guarantee you, both in terms of all the religious content I've ever read and all the scientific research I've ever read, it all comes down to the fact that at some point you will grow into that greater meaning. It will be, you won't have that purpose, because that purpose will be something that you don't have already. You can't be, hey, my purpose is to have, for me, it would be like, hey, I have 10 fingers. Okay. I have that already, so that's not really a purpose, right? You already have it. So purpose is always, striving to be something that you're not today, or striving to have something you don't have today. So it's always getting something greater. So greater meaning is really just on a broader scale, at a greater scale, helping a large number of people to have some sort of impact, or some sort of higher level spiritual awakening, or some sort of greater insight about how the world and the universe exists, or something like that. And that's fine. You can go seek that. But I promise you, no matter what it is that your purpose is, growth will be at the heart of it, and what you have to do in order to realize that purpose. So, growth is the meaning of life. It's the definition. It's the purpose. It's the significance. So the question is, well, how do you find out what is meaningful to you, and how do you go after it and succeed at achieving meaning? And that's where the other 7 items come in. So the meaning of life is growth. How do you grow? Experience. All growth is through experience. Now, the most obvious here, when you think about it, is career growth, right? Because what do people make you do? They make you write a resume to apply for the next job, right? And that resume includes what? Your past experience. So my experience in the career and in the business world has really influenced this book, in the sense that the business world really gets the purpose of life. They really get it. Resumes include your experience. They're trying to push you to grow as human capital in order to deliver more value to the organization. They want to align what they're trying to achieve, their wants as an organization, with your wants as an individual, and how you want to contribute to that. They have a set of principles or beliefs that everyone in the organization is expected to rally around in order to have the same way of thinking toward achieving that objective. They have a set of principles for ethics. Ethics are a subset of beliefs, and this is how we're going to agree how we're going to act as human beings, or employees in this case, for business to grow as an organization and succeed at achieving our objective. And then there are emotions. Emotions are harder because with business, you usually think of like, well, we don't want to be emotional, we want to be professional. But let's be real here. People care about it. They care that you feel good about being part of the organization. So they check it. They don't call it emotions. They in the business world, they call it what do they call it? um, oh, they call it employee engagement. That's what it is. So they call it employee engagement, which is the idea that how engaged are you as an employee in, how far are you leaning in? Those would be emotions like excitement, enthusiasm, being happy to work there, being glad that you're part of the organization, feeling a part, feeling loved or part of the community or the team. Those are all emotions. Engagement is just a euphemism almost for those terms, because you don't want to get touchy-feely at work, right? But employee engagement is basically testing the employee morale, right? Employee morale is the other way of saying that, right? Engagement is making sure people that morale equals I'm going to stay. But morale might be more familiar to you, so let's use that. So employee morale just means how good do you feel about the company? Feel, emotions. So your emotions are very important. Then of course support. So you work as a team. You have to work well with others. They help you in your job. You help them in their job, and you succeed as a group, and you achieve your goals as an organization. And then finally, choice. A lot of money goes into improving employee decision-making ability, right? So not just making ethical decisions, so we'll put that aside because it's in ethics, right? But just making a decision around how to act in order to achieve the goal, right? So do you call 15 people who are already happy customers? You call 15 people who aren't happy customers? Which one's going to get you the more value for the organization? What's going to result more sales, more retention, whatever the business goal is? Those are the choices that you're trying to empower your employees to make and actually educate them on making the best choices possible. So the working world uses all 8 of these: growth, experience, desire, belief, ethics, emotions, support, choice, uses all of them to be successful as an organization. It's not the only industry that does that, but that's a really good example. But any area of life, if you want to do spiritual growth, your desire is to become more in touch with God or the universe or whatever it is that you are trying to spiritually connect with, and your beliefs are that you can, there's something you can do to achieve that, right? And growth is your ability to transcend yourself or your mortal existence, to transcend and realize that spiritual enlightenment or awakening. And you have to have that spiritual experience in order to get that growth, in order to achieve that goal. And then you have to, ethics here is probably a little bit, obviously, you don't want to do anything that's bad mojo, right? So your ethics are about not hurting anyone, because that might, go against your beliefs or your spiritual self. Then support, of course, you might get with other people who are, maybe you have a mentor or some sort of master that helps you reach that level of enlightenment because they've been there and they've been down that path for you. And then choice. You make choices every day to be a more spiritual person. Maybe it's just the choice to sit down in a corner every day for 15 minutes and meditate. That could be it. But notice that those are all the components necessary to work toward the goal of becoming more spiritual. And that is the meaning. That is the purpose of your existence, is to find that thing you want, find that outcome you're trying to achieve. And again, there are many different types of growth. I'm not here to tell you which one's right. I just gave you a couple examples, business or spirituality, but it could be anything from intellectual growth, going to school, could be getting a broad network of friends or social contacts. That's always a great, a lot of people who love, people, if you will, those people love that kind of growth. It's wonderful, meeting new people, learning new things from them. These are all different types of growth. And each of them, you can go through each of the concepts, right? You desire to have that particular outcome. You have to believe that you can achieve it, and that will sustain you through the achievement of that objective. You have to have the requisite experience in order to grow. You have to follow the right set of rules, ethics that work for you to achieve that. You have to get support, especially if you're doing social growth. Support is built in because you rely on other people for said growth. And finally, you have to make the right choices, right? You have to decide to act to go toward that goal. No one can decide for you. No one can just hand you the goal. And that's the great thing about when you talk about meaning and purpose. People talk about people who are lost, especially in the U.S. modern times. They always say that there's this like crisis of meaning. They talk about that. when you think about the root cause of the crisis of meaning, what is it? Well, when you reach a certain level of success, right? So if you live in a first world country and you have a great deal of wealth, and your parents, built a great life for themselves and their families, and then you grow up in that environment of great, uh, let's call it prosperity, you might run into the crisis of meaning. Why? Because you're like, well, I got everything handed to me, so, and I had the easy life, right? I just went and played video games, or I don't want to pick on video games. I love video games, but I was playing video games, or I was reading books, or I was hanging out with my friends, or skateboarding, whatever it is that you were doing when you're growing up, without that clear need to sustain your life. You're not fighting for every day for to survive. You're not wrestling alligators or anything. If that's the case, then you might see that crisis of meaning. Why? Because, well, if you want anything, it's just handed to you, right? And that's really difficult to find meaning, because you have to go out and look for the growth. You have to go see the growth that you want and go and strive for it, because there's no like do it or die kind of situation. And a lot of people, I come from a relatively poor background for United States standards. So raised by a single mother, 2 kids, and I didn't have gifts for Christmas and things like that. And I'm actually really proud of that, because by not having a lot, I really knew that I wanted to have money to have security. And that strong desire led to me going into certain majors in school, and then when I graduated and got a job in the professional world, and I moved up the ranks as quickly as possible. I worked really hard and made a really good living for myself. And that mattered to me. And it was great that I had to work up from there. A lot of people are like, oh, why should anyone have to do that? It's like, well, you know what? It gave me a lot of great meaning and purpose in my life, because I was striving for it and I got it. In fact, the only crisis of meaning I ever had was whenever I attained it and went, well, what do I do now? Like, well, that was it. I'm here. Just keep doing this forever? This is terrible. There's nothing, what more am I going to get out of this? And that was hard for me, because I spent my whole life, just, for the next thing. I'm going to graduate from high school, then I'm going to go to college, I'm going to get a degree for that, then I'm going to go to get a job, then I'm going to make a lot of money, then I'm going to get a house, then I'm going to get a wife, then I'm going to get a car, then I'm going to get this, then I'm going to get that. And it was always about building, and accumulating great success in career, monetarily, learning psychologically, and through skills, and then while having fun and stuff in the meantime. But it was when the point is, well, what's the next goal? When you lose it, that's when you start to go, well, why am I doing any of this? And that's where it comes in. So that's why we have the crisis of meaning, if you can call it that, in modern societies today, is because a lot of people who haven't been taught these 8 concepts. The fact that, hey, look, your point of being here is not just to hang out and go to the go to Starbucks and get a coffee every day and just kind of hang out and chat with friends. Although that's good, that's social growth. I'm not knocking it, but there's a lot more to it, and you need to understand and master these 8 concepts. So that's a little bit of an introduction to the book. Hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, just let me know. Happy to help. This is what I wanted to do with my life once I figured it all out and boiled down all these philosophies down to these 8 concepts. I can't tell you how exciting it was to just hit that moment of inspiration where you see all those patterns and you go, wow, if religions and psychology and philosophies and all these different belief systems, behavioral economics, and all this understanding of human behavior, you're able to find out that there are 8 concepts that underlie every single recommendation ever made with how to live your life. But then to not just take that, and this was hugely important to me, to eliminate or remove my personal recommendations for how to live your life. That was hugely important. If you're looking for someone to tell you, here's how to live, this actually is not the book for you, ironically. I do not put my own beliefs in here as to how you should live. The chapter in ethics is I think it's 80 pages long or something, so sorry about that in advance. It is, gotta be a third of the book or something. And it is very complex. It probably might be confusing at some points because it's very detailed and exact. But I try to stick with what generally human beings can agree is universal ethics. So you might know it as, in short as try to help people. If you can't help people, don't hurt them, kind of thing. Other people might know it as don't hurt me, don't take my stuff. You know, the two principal rules of any kind of modern society is set some laws, say, hey, you know, don't hurt people, don't kill them, don't beat them up, don't steal from them, don't in any way make them worse off through some sort of harm being done to them. That is bad, so don't do that. In terms of what you should do could be any kind of behavior or activity that gets you closer to the outcome you're trying to achieve. But I don't specify, I specify examples of what positive ethics look like, but I don't say, hey, you should hold these positive ethics, because I don't think I am qualified to tell you how you should live your life. And I don't think anyone is, to be honest. And well, except for, okay, one exception, experts in the field that you're going into. So like if you want to be a famous football player or a successful football player, yes, it would be wonderful to get advice on how to do that from an expert football player. So there's that. But I meant like in general, someone's like giving you general life advice, like, hey, eat your vegetables, or, you know, work out 3 times a week, or whatever the recommendation is. Without knowing you, any of those recommendations are just kind of like, well, they generally work most of the time for most people. And they're not necessarily universal ethics that everyone should do all the time and follow without questioning. So that was very important to me. So hopefully, if you take a look at the book, if you read the book, if you find it to be valuable, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. Almost 7 years of my life, so I hope it was worth it. I hope at least one person reads it and goes, oh my God, he got it. He figured it out. He made all the connections across all these philosophies, found the common principles that tied them all together, and really figured out what makes life meaningful, and how you as a human being, through the, you can call them life hacks or whatever, can leverage these concepts, master them, and live life meaningfully, and find that meaning and purpose in your existence. This is, it's almost like a formula. I hate to make it sound formulaic, but it really is. These are the 8 things you need to know. The book is 358 pages because there's a lot of detail around why these are the things, how they work, and how you can apply them. And that's really important. So don't just take the 8 things and go, thanks, Nate, you told me these 8 things, I know these 8 things, so I'm not going to go bother looking at it. It's like, well, more complicated than that. But I hope you take a look. I hope you find it to be valuable. It would mean the world to me. Pun not intended, but happened anyway. Mean the world to me if you found value in it, and that my 30 years of searching and then writing helped someone else. It would just mean a lot to me. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the introduction of this book. The short unboxing of me just taking out of the box. This is the first time I've ever seen it, so if you're watching this years from now, which is possible being on YouTube, this is where it all started. This is the first time I've ever seen this, and hopefully there will be millions more where this came from. Thanks so much.